Okay, so sometime in your life you've probably heard someone be referred to as a duke or duchess or a lord or a lady, whether that was in history or in a TV show or a book. But it can become really confusing to keep all of those titles in order, and so today we're going to learn about royal titles in an English monarchy. So royal titles rose in the 17th and 18th century, beginning in the Stuart period, which took place from 1603 to 1714. Then moved on to the Georgian era, which took place from 1714 to 1837. According to English Heritage, the Georgian era was called so because it was during this time that the Hanoverians came onto the throne. So King George I, King George II, King George III, and King George IV. Next was the Regency era, which took place actually during the Georgian era. It took place from 1811 to 1820. So during those 9 years, that is when King George IV ruled instead of his father, because his father was really mentally ill and he was deemed unfit to rule. And that is according to Regency history. Next is the Victorian era from 1837 to 1901. And according to History.com, the Victorian era came to end in 1901 when Queen Victoria passed away, which led us to the Edwardian era, which took place from 1901 to 1910. So you're probably wondering, what is the order of power between these titles that we're about to get into? So it goes from the title King and Queens are obviously first, then Princes and Princesses, Dukes and Duchesses, a Marquis and a Marchioness, Earls and Countesses, Viscounts and Viscountesses, and Baron and a Baroness. First, we're going to get into Kings and Queens, obviously, because they are at the very top of the ruling hierarchy. So, kings and queens were rulers of countries, and the title king was inherited. So, a king, you often hear like an heir. The heir, every king had to have an heir, so their firstborn son would become the heir and would become the king one day. Kings rule until they die or until they are overthrown, and they are referred to as Your Majesty, His Majesty, Her Majesty. Next, we have princes and princesses. So princes and princesses are the daughters and sons of kings and queens. So an heir, as we just talked about, an heir to the throne is the oldest son, so the eldest prince. So, and if a woman marries a prince, she would become a princess. Next, we're going to get into dukes and duchesses, just their title names. A duke's title would be the duke of the place that they rule over. That's why I've got place name. So it would be the duke or the duchess of the place and the territory that they are ruling over instead of the king. They would be referred to as Your Grace. Next, we've got a Marquis and a Marchioness. I don't think I'm saying Marchioness right, but their title would be the Marquis of place name, just like the Duke. So the place that they are ruling over, they're the lord of. So they would be addressed as Lord or Lady place name as well. Just like their title, they would be referred to Lord or Lady, but with the place that they are ruling instead behind it. Next is earls. So the wife of an earl is called a countess, and their title would be earl and their surname. So instead of like the last two, where their titles would actually be lord of the place that they are over, an earl would be just earl and then their last name, and they would be addressed as Lord or Lady last name. Next we've got viscounts, and a viscountess is his wife. So their title would also be Viscount last name, but they would be addressed as Lord or Lady last name. Next we've got a baron, and a baroness would be his wife. Their title is technically baron, and then their surname, where then they would be addressed as Lord or Lady surname. So this is actually a baronet does not sit in the House of Lords. So like you would refer to the other 5 as Lord, a baronet is not a lord. So he would be referred to as Sir first name, and his wife would be referred to as Lady last name, so their surname. And next lastly we've got knights. And a knight would be referred to as Sir first name, and a knight's wife would be referred to as Lady last name or surname. And that is it.